Just the idea of facing Wazoo for a third time. I mean, just the old adage, how tough is it to beat a team for the third time in the season?
Just have to look back to last year and see how tough it was. Oregon State. I think we swept Oregon State, and they beat us in the first round. It's deja vu. I remember answering the same questions last year about how tough, and they ended up getting us. So it didn't work out last year. We have to make sure that we understand a couple of things. Number one, that we were in this situation and fell short. And number two, I don't know if you can say it after 2 games, but that team that we beat here a couple of weeks ago is not the same team that we're playing Wednesday night. Because we played the teams that they played. And we know how difficult it was against both of those teams. And they had no problem. So we better be ready to play.
From the things that you're saying on tape, just how are they different in just a week span?
I think Brock Modem scored 51 points in the 2 games. Brock Modem and Royce Woolridge combined for 56 points in their last game. Now, Woolridge had a good game against us, but those 2 guys are clicking, and the rest of the players are playing off of those guys. They've been an offensive juggernaut for those 2 games, in my opinion. I went through the film, their game against UCLA, and they made 28 field goals, and 23 of them were layups. I guarantee you, look around the country all year, and there are not going to be many better performances than that on offense. There were 2 or 3 putbacks on an offensive rebound, but that's a layup. You know, there were a couple that were right there on the block, I counted them as layups. That's pretty efficient basketball. I believe they were 51%, something like that against us, so they were efficient against us, but they even turned it up more in their last 2 games.
Did Coach Bone tweak how they're getting Brock loose? Are they just doing that better? Is he just making more difficult shots?
I know Coach Bone, and I know he's always tweaking, and he's always trying to get better. But I also saw a guy that was on a mission in Brock Modem, especially in the last game against USC. He was very, very aggressive offensively. We saw Kernich Drew. We experienced it. He can knock down the shots, and they have several guys that can knock down 3-pointers. So the thing is, I think they all were clicking at the same time over the last 2 games.
And then if you have Modem playing as well as he's playing now, do you begin the game with Simmons as opposed to?
We'll start the same way.
There's obviously a lot with this. It's the Pac-12 tournament, a chance to go to the NCAAs as well if you win it. This is the first round game. How much does this rivalry, Washington State and Washington, play into this first round game?
When we step out on the floor and there's no media to talk to, it's just us, I don't know if we see it as a rivalry. I see it as 2 teams possibly playing their last game of the year. That's enough, in my opinion.
What does Desmond have to do? What has he been able to do against Modem? What's he got to continue to do with
I think Desmond is just, he's such a hard worker. He doesn't take plays off, and he's shown that he's had a high level of concentration each possession that he's in there defending, and but him by himself couldn't do it. It's a team effort. Now, he's the primary guy that's been there, but the rest of the team has had a high level of focus. Like I've said before, he's just so dangerous, Brock, and can score in so many different ways. You better keep your eyes on him the entire time. And Desmond is one that he's been able to get out to the three-point shot. He's been able to do that, and he's been quick enough and tough enough to try to keep him from catching the ball all game. But Brock's a competitor. He's a really good player, really talented. I'm sure he's looking forward to this challenge.
He has said, Desmond has said that part of the deal with Modem or anybody else he ends up guarding is to know the scouts so well that he can beat the guy to his favorite spot. How does Desmond rank on your team as following scouts to the letter and executing exactly where he needs to be?
Against Washington State, he's been close to flawless. He's made very few mistakes in the scout.
For a coach, is that half the battle defensively, especially?
I think the first thing we tell our team every year, I even ask the seniors, can you tell the story, guys? I'm about to tell it, about defense and the scout. And most of the time they remember I played with a guy named Sidney Moncrief with the Milwaukee Bucks. And he was the defensive player of the year that I was there. And when it was over, I remember they asked him about why is he so good of a defender. And he says, I don't know if I'm as good a defender, which he was, as I'm good at following the scout. And I go over preparation and I watch film, and if I have a decent idea of what my opponent is gonna do, then I'm a lot more confident in how I'm going to defend. So that's very important. We try to emphasize that. We don't always execute it the way we would like. You know, the other thing we say is you can still execute the scout and they still score. They're not going to be shut out. They practice too. So how many possessions can you concentrate at a high level?
It's been an extended run now for CJ being cold from three. What would you attribute that to? I know his practice time is fluctuating, and is there any possible solution you can find prior to Wednesday?
CJ was, I think, top 10 in the league in minutes played. He's played a lot of minutes. And I watched some teams. I said, how do these guys function playing the minutes that they play? And a lot of times guys with heavy minutes, maybe they play a passive man-to-man. The man-to-man might be effective, but they don't exert a lot of energy. Maybe they play a lot of zone. Maybe in their offense they're running a lot of sets, so they can stand a little bit and pace themselves. The way we try to play, you're constantly moving. We ask a lot of you. You exert a lot of energy when you're playing in our system. And to do that game in and game out, we're asking CJ to rebound. He's one of our top rebounders. He's second in block shots. We're asking him to score, and he's doing all that, playing a lot of minutes. And he played a lot of minutes early, especially when we had injuries. Couldn't afford to take him out sometimes. I just wonder if he had been worn out a little bit. With a shooter, if your legs aren't there, that makes it very difficult to be consistent. So that could be an issue.
Can there be a mental wear for him? I think he's 21% in the last 10 games, and against UCLA, some of those looked dead on, rattled out on him. Even had Coach Holland kind of making a prayer motion after the game, saying thank you, that they didn't go down.
Yeah. So your question is?
Mentally, is that, can that pile
It could.
up to him too?
It could. I mean, with shooters, we always say, and I'll joke with CJ about it, if you're on, shoot until you miss. When you miss, shoot until you're on again. But whatever you do, keep shooting. And you have to shoot and take that 11th shot after the 10 didn't go in. Take that 11th like you've hit the last 10. You just have to do that. Sometimes when they don't go in, it can get to you, but I haven't seen CJ just clanking bricks up there. He's close around the rim. It just hadn't fallen with regularity. I thought he had a little bit of a breakout. Was he 7 of 14 against Washington State last time? And he's had a couple little bit of breakouts, but this will be a great time for him to just get in the zone and shoot a real high percentage.
And just the way that Scott has been shooting the ball lately, should he shoot more?
I think there's a catch. No one in here heard of Larry Hollifield, huh? The older I get, I seem to be able to stump more people. Larry Hollifield played at UCLA, and Larry Hollifield is from Compton, where I'm from. When I was younger, probably 14, 15 years old, was playing, and Larry would kind of take me under his wing and mentor me, and I'll never forget. I remember hitting about 5 straight shots, and they call it heat check shot today. The 6th one, guy was draped all over me, and I shot like a fall away, and I missed it. He pulled me aside. He said, when you're really hitting, continue to take good shots, because if you start forcing them, that zone that you're in, you could be out of it. Keep taking good shots, and you'll stay that way. And I say that to say I think Scott's shot selection has improved dramatically in the last few games, and I think he has been patient. I think there are games that Scott put up 16, 17 shots in games, and I think his patience is allowing him. It's less is more, and he's averaging more points right now than he's ever averaged in the last 4 games in his career. I think it has something to do with shot selection. So we could say in a 62 possession game, which is what the last game was, you could take more shots, but that means CJ's taking less shots. That means you kind of stop the game and just let him take every shot. And I don't know if that's best for your offense, because if you start to go that way and he's not open, but he's taking more shots, they may not be good shots for him.
Because you guys rely on outside shooters as much as you do, is there a concern going into a gym, a building no one has ever shot in before?
No. Sometimes the only concern sometimes with shooters, I shouldn't say with shooters, with some shooters. Because I believe when you can shoot, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter where you're playing, where you're going, unless it's outside. That's tough. But like Carrier Dome, where it's just so big, or like when the King Dome was there, you play in some of these big domes, and depth perception, I guess, makes it really tough. That could be problematic for some guys, but when you can shoot the ball, you can shoot the ball. That's how I feel.
In terms of the MGM Grand Arena, what have you heard about that place?
What I know for a fact is that their bread pudding is off the hook at a place called Emerald's.
I'm sure
Right
that's
there.
going to help you on Wednesday.
Yeah, but you didn't specify about whether it was basketball or not. You just said MGM.
In terms of basketball?
I haven't heard much about it. In fact, I'm anxious to get out there with our guys when we practice, to get in there be in there for the first time and see what it's like. But this is a Pac-12 tournament. I'm sure there's going to be a nice place to play. I'm sure everything will be set up just nicely.
Is there any advantage of playing the last game that day, of just being able to maybe watch those first games and see how things are going just with everything?
I don't know. You could argue that you're sitting around too long all day. 8:30, that's a late game. However, due to the scheduling this year, we've had much practice. We've received much practice in the 8:30 games. So maybe that'll be helpful.
And you plan to do what then all day with the guys on Wednesday?
We'll have a shoot around. I'm sure we'll watch games. In between team meetings and team meals, the day kind of goes by.
When you made the run with St. Louis in 2000, was that a 4 games and 4 day?
Yes, it was.
Anything, obviously you have to get past stage 1 to move on, but anything that you learned in that circumstance that helps you now that the Pac-12 tournament is set up to where the lower seeds would have to do that?
You have to win the first one, and you have to defend. I think in games like that, especially as the tournament wears on, guys' legs start to get weary. If you can really defend, you give yourself a chance.
How do you coach, I mean, you can't afford to rest guys in the first game, anticipating you might play a couple days in a row. So do you steal, maybe instead of resting a guy 30 seconds before a media timeout, you do it 45 or 60? Or is that how you try to approach it, or what's the nuance there that getting good for that?
I think the timeouts are longer. That helps. So between the TV timeouts and calling your own timeouts, you know, we tend to try to save our timeouts for the second half. We try to do that, but this may be a situation where you call one or two more in the first half than you normally would to kind of preserve your legs. But you can't play your game, as you said. You can't say, well, we're going to save anything and wait for the next one. You can't do that. There may not be a next one. So you just kind of have to do what you can do, and if you're fortunate enough to come out on top, you play the next day, just try to make it work again the same way. But I think you can strategically use timeouts a little better to just give you a little additional rest.
Without looking up the results of that St. Louis in 2000, were you had to give a couple of games at the end and you could rest guys, or were they all down to the wire and you just were all out?
Down to the wire. Yeah. Our first game, we were a 9 seed, I believe. Our first game was against Southern Miss, maybe. We won that one, and then the thing, we held each team under 60 points, and that made a big difference. That's why I was talking about defensively what we learned. Then we played Cincinnati. They were #1 in the country, and you definitely couldn't rest guys in that game.
Yeah.
Played Tulane after that, and DePaul in the final, and none of those games we could afford to really rest guys. We pulled away from Tulane a little bit, but not to the point where we could just call the dogs off. The other thing about that tournament is the week before, we lost on senior night, but it was at their place. Kenyon Martin on senior night. We lost by 44. So the next week we knew if we won the first one, we'd have to play them in the second game. The team we just lost by 44 points to. But we were able to band together and get it done.
Not that you remember that.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, there has never been a basketball game at MGM, right? They did it just for this.
No.
They played a tournament there earlier this year.
Oh, that is you want.
There you have it.
Yeah, the last time you played Wazoo in the tournament, from that game, you remember what?
In the tournament,
Yeah, in the tournament, that one, down there in the LA.
Klay Thompson went berserk. That's what I remember. I remember him, you know, the fact that he didn't score the first time he had the ball was a great victory, first of all. Then I think maybe there's a couple possessions later, there was a loose ball that squirted out to him and he hit it. Boy, he went off. He had a great game. That's what I remember. I remember us being down probably double digits, maybe, first half, or 8. I forget exactly what it was, and making a run early in the second half to get us back into the game quickly. But that was scary for a while there, and he just refused to miss in that game.
And that it seemed in that game that rivalry, though, sort of played into it, that maybe he wouldn't have done that if it wasn't Washington. If it wasn't Washington.
Well, if I can remember back too, I think they swept us that year. They had beaten us twice, and then this was the third game. And Klay was just, people would talk about Klay was quiet and wasn't a vocal leader. Klay was an assassin. He didn't say a word. I don't remember him ever talking the entire time he was at Washington State. I don't remember his lips moving. But he was an assassin. He would score 70 points if you didn't guard him, and be ticked if he didn't get 72. I mean, he was an assassin. He was a serious competitor.
We've seen teams who were hot at the end of the year do well in the tournament, and teams who were not, like Colorado last year, was stumbling heading into the tournament and ended up winning it 4 games. Do you put stock into the value of either of those, or is that telling us that once the tournament starts, it's a complete start over for everybody?
Complete start over. 2006, we finished the season strong. We might have been undefeated in our last 7 games, whatever it was, and we lost first or second round to Oregon. Another great performance. Chamberlain Oguchi went off, scored a bunch of points, hit a bunch of threes, and Oregon beat us. And then I just mentioned what happened when we were at St. Louis, got beat by 44, play that same team again and win. I mean, the probability of that happening is very slim. So I don't think it matters. I think you come in, your matchups are very important, who you're playing against, and be ready to play. Some teams come in with the jitters. Some teams come in like they've already played 4 games in the tournament, and they're cool, calm, and collected.
And have you seen teams that know they're already going to be in the tournament have a more relaxed approach to the conference tournament, or do you think that doesn't necessarily influence teams when they're playing the conference tournament?
I think it could possibly be the situation, but teams that won, they come in, they're ready to play. I thought we were ready to play against Oregon State last year. We made some mistakes, but I think for the most part, teams, they come ready to play.
This is March Madness. There were buzzer beaters all over the country this year. It's a great time for basketball fans. Is it just as exciting for you as a coach and as players to get in that mix with the conference tournament and with everything on the line for the big dance?
This is always an exciting time, this time of the year. The only thing you can predict is that it's going to be unpredictable. That's what I say. So with that, how many predicted Oregon State would beat Colorado at Colorado? How about Utah would beat Oregon? USC and UCLA would get swept by Wazoo, dominated by Wazoo. Unpredictable. Better come ready to play. Doesn't matter who you're playing, you better come ready to play.
Is that it?
Hey, any thoughts on the Pac-12 awards and with your guy CJ getting second team all conference?
Happy for CJ. Last year he wasn't able to make the all-conference team, but this year he was. I definitely think it's deserving. I thought a couple games where he didn't shoot the ball as well may have cost him being first team, because not only was he right there at first team, but I thought in January he was playing like potential player of the year. But still, in all, I'm happy for CJ that he made it. A little surprised that Aziz Njai was not on the all-defensive team.
And health? Is everyone all right?
Health is good.